But the big question, and this was the subject of a column I wrote a couple of weeks ago, we all know the rules when it comes to energy security and energy policy. And one of the pillars of energy security is diversification of inputs. And for a producing country, an exporting country, the rule is you want to diversify your markets. You don't want to be a hostess to one market and then get nailed. We already seen it in Europe. We already know the problems. And the way Russia and China are going right now is really the wrong way. This is wrong because if the relationship explodes one day, both countries will be nailed and the whole world is going to suffer because of that. The increased dependence of Russia on China is a problem, and the increased dependence of China on Russia is a problem. Not only for them, even for the rest of the world. We already have seen it in Europe. And that brings us to another point, and it is related point. The dependence of Europe on US LNG is a serious problem for the US and Europe. So imagine that all of a sudden, if we have a major recession in Europe, where that LNG is going to go. Or if we have 3-4 hurricanes after each other at the end of August, early September in the United States for 3-4 weeks. So we cannot ship LNG to Europe. What's going to happen in Europe? So there is so with what's been going on with the war and the energy crises around the world, we have not learned the lessons, and policymakers have not learned their lessons. They should be diversification. It is very clear when it comes to lessons to point out that there are some people who are learning those lessons. We already seen the contract between China and Qatar on the long-term LNG contract, which is a good step to shy away from the spot market, as I explained earlier. We've seen Germany basically signing a contract, which, by the way, we discussed this in details in the Substack. For those who are interested, we discussed the Qatar-Germany thing. And one of the issues here is all of a sudden the German leadership who rejected earlier deal from Qatar, because Qatar offered them a long-term deal starting in 2026, and they asked them to sign a long-term contract, and they refused. Now they went back and told them, okay, we will take it. We will sign a deal, a long-term contract. So they are realizing that the value of security that comes from long-term contracts. So some of them are learning the lessons, but the others have not learned yet. And with that, we had the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt just ended about 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago. And the problem is the rhetoric of the climate change is still there, despite the fact that it should be less, because the harm that came from the hype was really harmful for everyone. And the countries that had the highest hype, they suffered the most. But the hype is still there. And the idea that they will continue with it makes sense to me, because it is a religion. And I seriously believe that when it is a religion and all of a sudden you go back to coal, so you sinned. Now you committed a sin. So what do you do? Regardless of religion, what religious people do when they commit a sin? They act up more religiously. And therefore, they have to talk more about climate change. Back to you.
Thank you so much.